I told you I'd be back later on tonight. I was going to see Gladiator 2, and I'd give you my thoughts right out of the gate, my reaction. Yeah, overall, I mean, just let's start out this. It's a good movie. It's epic. It's big. It's loud. There's a lot going on, and a lot of the times there's a lot to kind of keep track. There's a lot of great characters. I think Ridley Scott, someone who I've been kind of critical of over the last year, maybe year and a half, ever since he did Napoleon. I really didn't like Napoleon. He's been hit and miss, but I mean, the guy's 86 years old, right? Legendary director, really can't take anything away from him. And I think he put a lot of effort, a lot of work into this one and tried to come up with something that was going to be satisfactory to everybody who saw Gladiator. It was like 24 years ago, 25 years ago. I think Gladiator 2, I guess it's a Gladiator for a new age, a new generation, which is great. I think these type of stories, these type of epic films are never going to go out of style. And I do have some critiques. We're going to get to some critiques. It's not a perfect film by any means, but it's a really fun, good film to go and watch. It's long. I'll tell you that right off the bat. And I don't know if this is a critique or not, because some people don't like long movies. I don't like sitting in theaters for a long time. But our screening started at 4:05 p.m. We didn't get out of the theater until about 7 p.m. So it's a long movie. If the movie's good, who cares how long it is, right? It was never a point in the film where you're like, oh man, this is slowed down. This is tiring. It never got to that point. It just kept a really good pace throughout the whole thing. Never felt bored with it. And a lot of things done really well. And let's start out with just the technical stuff. I think it's, we always think it's a given when we see a Hollywood movie, especially one that's this big in scope and size, that, the costuming is going to be great. The setting and all that, the set pieces, the design, all of that stuff. They obviously did the homework because it looked very authentic. Now, some of the CGI, some of it's, a lot of it's CGI, of course, because stuff doesn't exist. It looked epic. It looked epic, right? So, and that's the first thing you're thinking to yourself, all right, Gladiator 2, this is going to be an epic film. Does it look epic? It looks epic. It sounds epic. And the music, special effects sounds, things like that, it sounds epic. And I thought that was really impressive. So overall, I would say, yeah, this is a really, really good film. And I keep not using the word great, because why is it not a great film? Here's what Gladiator 2 does not have that Gladiator 1 does. A real strong emotional depth. What do I mean by that? If you know the original Gladiator, Russell Crowe's character, Maximus, he goes through his character is set up so well in the beginning that his downfall, the tragedy that he has to go through, what he has to go through, the losses he has to go through, they're just gut-wrenching. They're hard to watch. I mean, it's gut-wrenching. And here you don't get the similar setup. You get similar circumstances, but it's hard to feel anything if the setup is only 2 minutes long in the beginning of the film, right? It's hard to have that emotional attachment to something when it hasn't been given the time to really grow inside the audience's mind. So it follows the blueprint of Gladiator, but it doesn't hit that same emotional depth or chord that the original does. I hope that kind of makes sense. Does that make it a bad film? Absolutely not. You understand the motivations, you understand what's going on, you understand why things are happening, and things are, explained really well from there on in, but they miss that initial hook, right? And once you miss that initial hook in that first 2 to 5 minutes, it's hard to kind of go back and get that again, because you're already off and running to the races. Absolutely, you should go and see it in a theater. It's meant to be seen in a theater. For those of you that are like, I just wait until streaming. I don't care. If you got an 85-inch television, you're still not going, with the sound bar or sound, you're still not going to get the experience that you would in a theater like we just had a couple hours ago. Looks great. Sounds great. It's epic. Can't recommend it enough. The best way I can describe this is like it's like an extended epilogue of the original film. And it's done really, really well if you look at it like that. It's an extended epilogue. You get some characters that come back. They do their best to tie it in and connect the dots to the original film. So that felt good. It didn't feel like it felt respectful. I guess that's the word I'm looking for. It felt really, really respectful to the work that Scott and Russell Crowe did all those years ago, and Joaquin Phoenix. So let's get into some more of the specifics. You all know I've said this before. Denzel Washington, incredible actor, proves it in this one. Absolutely fabulous acting in this one. He pulls off his role every time he's on screen. He nails it. it almost seems effortless when you're watching him. Like he's not really, you're like, wow, he's not even trying. He's just so good at what he does. He's a master of his craft. I think when you get to that point where you're such a master at your craft, like he is, and you watch him perform a role, you're like, it's almost like you don't appreciate everything he does. I mean, the way he moved, the way he moved on screen. You could tell he put a lot of thought of how he moved his cloak, how he sat down, how he moved his hands, facial expressions, how he decided when and how to lean in, when he needed to say something or lean out. Just everything about his performance was great. I'm not an expert at predicting the Oscars or who's going to be nominated. I would definitely think he gets nominated for this. It's that good of a role, and it's Denzel, and I think he's got a lot of goodwill, and I think people are going to look at it and go, well, and he's already said he's only got 2 or 3 films left before he retires after this. So definitely one of my 2 favorite characters. The other one, who plays General Acacius, Pedro Pascal. He really showed something different in this film. He really got into some of the nuances of acting that you look for that make a great... And I always use Heath Ledger as the Joker as an example, right? Heath Ledger didn't just come out and say the lines. It's his little ticks, his facial ticks, the way he moves his tongue, the way he smacks his lip, his hand movements, every little piece of it's thought about. And you can tell that Pedro Pascal had a similar line of thinking, that everything he did on screen, every movement, the way he stood, the way he looked, the way he turned his head, everything had purpose. Everything had meaning. Nothing was wasted. And he was very understated in how he performed. He wasn't over the top. I would say this. Denzel Washington may have had the best performance and the most memorable character throughout the whole film. Pedro Pascal had the most intriguing character, the one that you really wanted to know more about, the one you wanted to spend more time with, the one you wanted to figure out, like, okay, what's behind a lot of some of these things. Because, he is just he's a supporting actor. It's a supporting role, so he's not going to be the main character. So you're not going to get him all the time everywhere. But he really pulled off a great role. He really pulled out a great performance. Is this something that he should be, given some consideration for some awards? Yeah, I call it like I see it. I thought it was one of the better performances. I think his and Denzel's performances in this film were 2 of the better performances I've seen all year long in all film. And I truly mean that. They're really, really well done. So they held your attention. When they're on screen, they hold your attention. That's just really good performances. Connie Nielson, I've always known that she can pull off a role here and there. She is the emotional anchor. Without Connie Nielson in this film, there is no real emotional anchor. She manages, like I said in the beginning, you missed that first emotional hook to kind of get you like make a good film great. She gives you an emotional hook later on that maintains. This could have been just a popcorn flick with great action sequences and battles and blood and all that stuff, right? It could have been just one of those and been happy to have it as one of those, no problem. It certainly has those sequences. But Connie Nielsen's performance gives you that emotional hook. And she does it very well. And she's not overbearing with it. It's very, again, measured. She's very measured. She's high energy or high emotion or not. She's stoic when she needs to be stoic, which we all know is a trait of the Romans and the Greeks back in that time. And she abandons that stoicism when she needs to, when the scene really calls for it. And so she really helps out that film. She's the unsung hero. We always have like the 6th man in the NBA, right? The player no one really thinks about that really actually contributes so much to make success. She's that member of the cast. Without her, you lose 80%, 70% of the emotional attachment to the characters. And she keeps you in there grounded. She keeps you with knowing exactly where you should be as an audience and where your loyalty should be and where your emotions should be, where your heart should be. Great job to her. Paul Mescal. He made some, and I'm not sure if it was his choice or somebody else's choice. You can't follow up Russell Crowe's performance in the original Gladiator by trying to mimic it. You just can't do it because there's only one Russell Crowe. So Paul Mescal made some very smart choices, very bold choices. If they fell flat, they would have really ruined the film, but they didn't fall flat. They actually worked. is that when you watch the original Gladiator, Russell Crowe he's punk rock, man. He's rock and roll. He's energy. He's just rage spewing out from him, rage and strength and whatnot. Paul Mescal's character is not that. You look at him, it's like he doesn't have the size of the bulk. He's simmering. He's not he's not a bonfire. He's a simmering flame that when it needs to be, a little bit of grease drops into it and it flames up and boom, burns you, right? And there, he knows how to just keep a level, even keel. And then when he needs to just jack it up, he jacks it up and it brings it right back down. It's like a little bit of spice when you need it. So I think bravo to him. He had that's a hard role to step into. I mean, you got to take, granted, you got Ridley Scott, you got all these other great actors around you to help you out, to help carry a lot of scenes, but he didn't need it. He didn't need it at all. He's overshadowed by Pedro Pascal. He's overshadowed by Denzel Washington just because they are so more seasoned and on another level that his good performance is just overshadowed. But he shows a different type of character than what you're expecting. And I think that's a good thing because one, if he tried to be Russell Crowe, it would look like they're just doing cosplay and it would look like they're just trying to really mimic the success of the previous one instead of trying to do something that has a little originality and creativity to it. So definitely, like I said, I appreciate the choices that he made. There's a couple of moments I will tell you they don't work, right? They don't work just because I guess stoicism is not really a thing that's really a well-known thing, in our society, that lack of emotion, that one. But they're few and far between. 98% of his performance works the way he's doing it, the way he does it. This film respects and honors the original film. It respects and honors the original story. It respects and honors the original work done on that original film, which holds such a high place in cinematic history. This is not the great film that Gladiator is. This is a really, really, really good film. It's worthy. It's absolutely worthy. Again, the other part of this film is you go into it, and like I said, it's epic. Opening scene. Okay, we're going big. I mean, Ridley Scott's going big with some of these battles and some of these scenes. The Gladiator fights, the Colosseum. Amazing to see some of that stuff. The way in which they reproduced a lot of that. But the Colosseum in Rome, it wasn't just, they put people or animals and whatnot on the dirt and they'd all fight it up. Sometimes they would flood the thing. They would fill it with water. And they would have ships inside and they'd have a naval battle. Gladiator naval battle. And Ridley Scott decided, he's like, I'm going to pull that off. And he pulled it off. And it was just it was just cool. It's just cool. It just goes to show you that they know the history. Is the history 100% accurate? No. There's some things in there. I'm not going to spoil. I'm going to be like, all right, that didn't happen. That's not real. And Ridley Scott's already stated before that he doesn't really care to have the historical accuracy trump the idea of telling a great story. Fair enough. I'm a fan of Braveheart. I can't complain about historical accuracy too much. But there's a few things here and there that you're like, okay, that didn't happen. If you know, you know. If you don't, it's not going to bother you. So whatever. Again, the Gladiator battles, very cool. Very, very cool. The one that you see in the trailer with the rhino is probably my favorite next to the naval battle. That was so well done, so well choreographed, and it sounded great. Here's the thing, you think about they did their work on the sound design and getting the idea of the crowd, how that would sound, open air, this natural amphitheater that they built, natural acoustics off of the stone and the quartz or whatever they carved the blocks out of to build the Colosseum. The way the emperors speak and project their voice, the way the announcer, I'm going to call him the announcer, the master of ceremonies projects. They got all of that right because it would echo just the right way. And again, I've been in the Colosseum, so I know how it echoes. And they got it right. And it just added to the tension. It added to the anxiety. It added to the conflict that you were watching in front of you. And there's a lot of battles. There's a lot of fights, a lot of battles, really bloody, which amazed me because about 30 minutes in, I started hearing a baby cry or a child cry, like a 3-year-old or 4-year-old. And my wife says, "What do you hear?" I said, "Yeah." And in front of us, there was a young couple with a 4-year-old girl. And I don't think she wanted to be in Gladiator 2. And so I was just looking, I'm like, wow. All right. You have a 4-year-old girl watching grown men do horrible, horrible things to each other right now. Good luck with the nightmares tonight or the nightmares this week. But c'est la vie. I raised my kids the way I want to raise my kids. You raise your kids the way you want to raise kids. I found it. It really blew my mind that somebody had a 4-year-old girl in there. Overall, the epic battle scenes, great battle scenes. Loved the way they did the archery, the bow and arrows, the way they use those in combat. Here's where I want to nitpick a little bit. Some of the CGI is just noticeably not good. There's a scene where, and again, I hope, spoiler warning, I'm not going to give anything away too much. There's a scene where the gladiators are all fighting a bunch of wild baboons or monkeys or something. Some sort of primate with large teeth and a surly disposition. They look so fake. And when I say so fake, I'm talking, if you remember the Flash movie with the babies and the microwave and all that in the beginning, how fake they look. These look really fake. Granted, I get it. They have to be fake. You ain't fighting real monkeys. Okay. That kind of took me out a little bit of that battle. The only thing actually what kept me into that battle was the work of Paul Mescal and his physicality. The physical work they all do. That kept me in that. A couple of the overhead shots of Rome, because they're trying to show the expanse of the city and how grand it was. Some of the backdrops, they could have been a little bit better. They could have been better. There was noticeable. I'm like, oh, that's not finished, or oh, that wasn't checked, or that wasn't. Someone didn't look at that and go change that. It's the big screen, so you're going to notice these flaws a little bit more. Does it ruin the film? Did it take me out of the film? No. It's just like, I made a mental note, like, oh, okay, all right, But I'm not there for CGI. Again, I always tell you, when I go see a movie and I want to review a movie with you, I'm going to tell you, this is what I'm not looking for CGI. I'm looking for great performances. I'm looking for epic action. I'm looking for an epic story. I'm looking for overall, how does it connect with the previous story, the previous film, direction, cinematography, all that, the very artistic thing. Like the other day, I did a review of Red One. I'm not looking for that kind of stuff in Red One. I'm looking for fun. I'm looking for laughs. I'm looking for cheer and joy and good-natured heartedness and walking out of the theater thinking it's Christmas, right? You can't judge you have to judge each film on the merits of what it's trying to do and what it's trying to be. And this film is trying to be epic. It's trying to tell a great story, and it's trying to be entertaining as hell. And it really does that. It really, really does that. Only thing missing that's critical. The only thing critical, and again, maybe it's just me. You could probably leave in the comment section and say, hey, you know what? I felt differently, but it's that emotional hook in the beginning compared to the emotional hook that grabs you. Like I said, when I watched Gladiator, there were times where I just wanted to just double over, gut-wrenching, like that is just felt terrible for the guy and what he was going through. Here, you were like, that sucks. Okay, well, we know where it's going, so let's get there. And they get there. And it's fine, they get there, but you don't, like I said, it's not that same impact. It's not the same impact. That's my review of Gladiator 2. Definitely worth the price of admission, like I said. You got to be prepared. It's a long movie, but Denzel Washington, Pedro Pascal, Paul Mescal, Connie Nielsen, the guys who play the emperors, whacked out of their minds. Great unhinged performances. Over the top, but they need to be over the top. Everybody, there wasn't a bad performance. You're not going to be disappointed in this film. I don't know what it's tracking. I've seen different things, whether it's tracking well at the box office, not tracking well at the box office for the United States. Again, here in Mexico, it's friggin' sold out. Every theater was sold out for the rest of the night from 4 o'clock on until it closes. And I suspect that's the way it's going to be for the rest of the weekend. So I think this film's going to have a really good international opening to kick it off to get to the United States. I think you're going to enjoy it. I think if you've been waiting to see this film, I know people were really disappointed in the first trailer that used hip-hop music. Let it go. There's no hip-hop music in this thing. Let it go. Couldn't recommend this film more. It's definitely top 10 for the year. I'm not sure if it's top 5, but definitely top 10. Definitely top 10. It might actually be top 5. I'm thinking back to all the movies I've seen this year, all the movies I've reviewed for you guys this year, both in theater, on Netflix, and all. This might be top 5. That's what I got for you. That is my review of Gladiator 2. Hopefully I kept it as spoiler-free as possible. Hope I didn't spoil anything for you. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for checking in. If you like this video, please remember to like, share, subscribe, comment. Love to hear your comments. With that, from somewhere south of the border, I'm still your reluctant gringo. Salud. And a huevo.